All right, check. What is up, everybody? I hope you guys missed us. I think it's been we skipped last week, so now we're back this week catching up on your guys' questions. If you guys haven't been here before, this is Tech Support Live, so this is your whole hour to get all your tech support questions or upgrade questions, or if you're just here to hang out, we're here for you guys. So I'm Angelo. I'm the Digital Experience Manager here at NETGEAR, so I help manage this YouTube channel. I also help manage Mural. It's our smart art frame. If you guys haven't checked it out, check it out at netgear.com. Super dope. I will tell you more about it if you guys do have questions about that. But either way, that's my intro, and Darren, I'll hand it off to you.
Hi, I'm Darren. I'm a technical support specialist and community moderator at NETGEAR. I answer questions about our home networking products within our community and sometimes on social media. That's where you can find and reach out to me or reach out to any of the community moderators for help on your products. And off to Michael.
Hey everyone, I'm Michael, Technical Marketing Manager at NETGEAR. Most of you know me if you've been on the show before. I spend a lot of time with our beta products and do a lot of testing, work trade shows, and have been an L3 at NETGEAR previously. So I'm here to also help answer any questions you got.
Perfect. I do see Kieran's question. Super early, 8 a.m. our time, so that's super dope to see. And again, the earlier you guys are here, the better, because we're going to go down in chronological order, and we'll get started with you, Kieran, in a quick sec. But I did want to shout out Ren. There might be a new name I have not recognized, but welcome to the show if it's your first time here. And Jerry and Razor, I recognize you guys, so what's up? I love seeing our regulars back here, and if this is a show that you guys do want to see week on week, please give us a like, please give us a subscribe. The more people we'll see in the chat, the better value we're able to, one, kind of give to you guys, but also two, seeing your guys' support helps keep the show running week over week, because if we got an empty room, we can't keep doing this. So we love to see you guys here, especially our happy regulars. So Karen, let's go ahead and get started with your question. And I'm going to read it out here, but if you do have a little bit more context, again, just throw your comment in the chat, and then, we're going to help you kind of through our time here. All right, so Extra 1000, looks like your router got updated overnight, which is a feature. There is auto update, but you mentioned you did a delete all offline on my device manager, and now when I go to GeoFilter, it states unmatched device and won't let me select another device. Auto update probably explains why the internet went off in the early hours, logic behind the auto update, and when is it likely to do it. So two things, let's figure out your device manager kind of situation, and then we'll kind of add a little bit more context into how the routers work for auto updates. Darren, Michael, do you guys have any kind of initial thoughts here on how to help Karen out?
Well, the first thing is it's interesting that he had problems after he deleted the devices. Normally, the complaint people have just in general on the routers is when they're trying to actually delete the offline devices and they won't delete. So plus for you, Kieran, that you're actually able to get things deleted off. Unfortunately, the side effect looks like you can no longer add the devices back in. I haven't seen this problem before. Haven't heard anything on the XR1000 with that. It might be that when the offline devices were deleted, that it somehow blacklisted the devices, and that is causing a problem. The easiest solution here I would recommend, especially since there was a firmware update that just came down, is do a factory reset on your router and then set it back up again. One, the factory reset will clear out any previous values that were there that were carried over to the new update of the firmware, but caused some problems because one of the values was wrong, which also might be the reason why you're seeing this. It can happen. Normally, they're supposed to clear out all of the registers in the router when they flash it with the new firmware. But worst case scenario, doing a factory reset on it will clear it completely out, set it back up again. Any other comments, Darren?
No, I mean, I think it could be, like you're saying, an issue with the firmware update, and maybe some old settings got messed up, and then you just need a factory reset, and then should restore everything after you set it back up.
Yep. Exactly. And of course, when you do a factory reset, that's not going to put it back to the previous firmware. It'll still keep the latest firmware that you have. It just removes all the values that were in there and puts them back to factory settings.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like one of those things where, one, I mean, Doom OS is relatively sophisticated software. So, every time you're kind of tinkering something, it could affect another thing here. And I think that's kind of where Michael's mentioning like these different values, right? So, not saying like deleting these offline devices might have maybe has something to do with, but it's kind of like every time you kind of upgrade to like a new OS, like sometimes every now and then I'll actually update like, I don't know, my computer, like a brand new Windows 11 computer or something like that, let's say down the line, might just like start fresh rather than just doing the complete like upgrade cycle. So just one of those things that, sometimes things do come up within the software. And again, if you do the factory reset and you put the same SSID name and the same password, your current devices should still connect. You don't have to completely like reconnect your TV, your Amazon Echo, whatever device that you got going on. But again, hopefully it's relatively quick of a process.
Yeah,
And if you, oh, go on, Darren.
As I said, Kieran asked if he can back up his config and use it again. You could try and see if that works, but you could still run into the same issue and have to reset it again if you try to load that config and still seeing that same problem.
Right, especially since the config normally is just capturing all of those registry values that you've set, and so it's trying to put those back in without you having to do anything. So by reflashing that back on there, you're probably going to end up in the same state because everything's going to be set exactly the way that it is right now. Also, one thing I recommend for anyone, whether it's one of our gaming routers or not, is if you made a lot of customization to it, change values, things like that, like port forwarding, go and take a bunch of screenshots of these screens where you've actually made the changes. Then when you factory reset it, it's much easier to put those back in because you have a cheat sheet to go along with. Otherwise, you factory reset it and you say, wait a minute, I port forwarded like 10 different ports and I can't remember which ones I did.
Hey, solid advice. That's the thing, you will have to kind of like reconfigure everything. I think it is an opportunity, honestly, to every now and then kind of do that. Like even with my network here, like if I were to kind of clear things out and kind of refresh it, just ensure that I'm getting full speeds back to all of my devices. So hey, you might kind of see these, even though they're unintended, but like kind of positive benefits of being to kind of just like clean out the system in a way. But yeah, if you do save the old config file, you might get some of those old values that were giving you issues. So yep, as long as you one, either remember or two, capture these screenshots, you should be completely set by the time you get back to Doom OS after you clean out the gunk. Sunday, John.
Also,
Yep.
Kieran's question about the auto update, what's the logic behind it, and when is it likely to do it? Well, it's likely to do it sometime late at night because they don't want it to affect you in the middle of the day. It doesn't always have to reboot your router once it's flashed to new firmware. It sometimes can reboot just a portion of it, something you wouldn't notice. But if it does need to reboot the router after it's made all the changes with the new firmware flash, it shouldn't take that long. You mentioned that your internet went off in the early hours. If it went off only for, I'd say 3 to 5 minutes, then that's about right, because it's basically the router rebooting, starting completely back up again, and then it's ready to go. If your internet was off for 20, 30 minutes or more, then it probably wasn't the update that caused it to do that. It was power going out or your internet going out during that time period. And the logic behind the auto update, basically because they're always trying to make sure that any patches, any fixes get out to customers as quickly as possible. And the truth is we're all lazy. If there's an update out there and we don't have to put it in there, we're not going to. We'll put it off and we'll put it off. Kind of like when our work laptops here want to update on Fridays. And, we try putting it off. Sooner or later, it's going to force us to update at the worst possible time. In fact, iPhones do that to me all the time if I push the update off too long. And then it finally says, forget it, we're updating right now, right about the time I'm trying to show a customer something. So that's the main reason why they're doing it, is they just want to make sure any patches or fixes get pushed out there and the customer doesn't have to think about it.
I have a follow-up question. Do all routers have that auto update functionality turned on by default?
All the ones that I've seen, I know NETGEAR, all of ours is turned on by default. Other vendors can't be completely sure. I know the ASUS routers I've had, they all had it turned on by default. Most of the time for companies, having it on by default is the best for them because if there's a patch that needs to go out there, especially it's important, they want it pushed out, and they don't want to have to worry that 25% of the users aren't getting the patch.
Yeah, they want to make sure the security fixes are pushed through so people aren't getting hacked into. So by default, yeah, it's probably on auto update.
Yep.
Perfect. So everybody here who is in the chat actually watching the show right now doesn't have to like freak out and like, I need to update my router. I don't remember the last, because that's going on in my head. I'm like, when is the last time you probably manually updated your router's firmware, right? For me, it's no.
And Darren hit on a key thing there, especially the security updates. The security patches, yeah, those things are things that they want out there as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So at least for Kieran, just know the auto update is there for a variety of reasons, but there are reasons that benefit you as a customer in terms of security, in terms of just being able to kind of get you the latest and greatest features out, make your just really improve your product over time. So again, we're not just there to mess up your settings. Like that's it. Ryan, he has work. Hi, wait.
Season 5. Season 5
Season
of
5.
Which game?
Talking about. Is that what work is?
I mean, the first thing I think about is Diablo, but I haven't been paying much attention whether season 5 is out there or not, or which season it's on. But obviously it's a game. Which one?
Diablo 2 beta is out today if you want to play it, if you pre-ordered.
Wait,
no, I still have my old Diablo 2 discs. I'm fine.
Does Diablo come out in seasons now?
Oh, yeah, Diablo has had seasons for ages.
Oh, Jesus.
We're on like 18, 19?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dang. All right, Ryan, tell us what season of what game?
So which game?
Unless you're playing a really old Diablo
season 5 might be Warzone.
There we go.
Well, I thought I just saw an article saying that they had banned 50,000 accounts.
It doesn't stop anything. They don't have an anti-cheat at all, and they just wait a month, let everyone get their cheats, make new accounts, and then ban them again, and then it's just constant cheating over and over again. It's terrible.
Is it really worse than what
it's bad.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow.
From what I've heard, I don't play Warzone, but everything that I've heard and read, yeah, the cheating is absolutely rampant. And there was one video that I thought was awesome. You could shoot anywhere and still hit a person. They showed the person had his video running, and he saw someone off in the distance. He aimed his gun at the ground and just started firing, and every bullet hit that person.
Well, what's worse than this, Michael, is they had skins that they were planning to release in a future update in the game, and the cheaters are able to unlock them and use them now before they're even out. That's how terrible the coding is. That's bad. Anything.
Well, when you at least have an NPG router, at least you can at least ensure that you are getting the best connection. You can't stop the cheaters, though. That sucks.
No, even if the people on the other side are cheating, at least you can watch them better cheating.
Man. Well, thank you for coming, Ryan. We do appreciate you coming here every week. Hamad, I want to shout out to you as well. Where is Ben today? He is actually doing a lot of landing page stuff. So he's doing a lot of web stuff. He's making because he's the digital experience manager for both Armor and SPC. I can just say we're cooking up a lot of really cool things for that. That's all I can say. So, yep, he's got just a lot on his plate. And I did see a couple comments. I did see one for Your Next 2012, and then one from Marco. I see a message retracted from Marco. So Your Next, I see, are they going to fix XR 500 Nighthawk firmware situation? Darren, is there something going on with the community, or maybe Your Next? Is there something that we could specifically help you out here while we have
I don't know what specifically he's asking about, but I'm guessing that they're wanting Doom 3.0, which hasn't been officially released on our routers yet. We currently have the beta available. You can find in our beta community. If you search NETGEAR Innovation, it'll get you to that beta site if you want to try that. But no, we don't have any updates on a release for the actual live firmware yet, and Ben would give more information on that if he was here.
Yeah. Hopefully we could get Ben in for next week. So Ben is our non-hardware gamer. He will be kind of like your all-around expert for everything NPG. But again, we do know that the beta firmware is one. It's been something actually for quite some time, hasn't it? I guess we can't even say when it's going to come out of beta, but hopefully it's kind of ironed out a lot of those fixes. And again, if you are part of that beta community, you will have that opportunity to be a part of the beta program. Improve the software along with everybody else before it gets to everybody else's routers once it's final release. So you're next. You can get on the beta firmware if you do want, but again, if you want to stay official, just know that it's continually in the works. But, sorry, last thing. If you do have a very specific problem, throw it in the chat because we will help you to the best of our ability here. Marco, I do want to get to your question here. So, I do not currently own a NETGEAR modem, but I've been undergoing a slope of unwanted users in my Wi-Fi network. That does not sound good. I've tried numerous apps that might help itemize those users and devices, but to no avail. Trying to secure my network. Oh, we got a lot to talk about there, but interesting. I don't know if you actually run into this situation a lot, where we got to ask you what you're using if it's not a NETGEAR product here. So I'm not too sure how we can.
Well, there's actually a few things to look at. First of all, the modem is normally not the thing that is stopping people from coming into your network. There can be some firewalls on a modem, but it's usually your router that's stopping it, because it goes to the modem, goes through there, hits your router, and then your router basically decides whether it's going to accept what's coming in from the internet or not. But you're mentioning that you're getting a lot of unwanted visitors using your Wi-Fi network. And if they're not coming from the outside on the internet, then that means other people are coming into your network through your local network, which means they're somehow logging into your Wi-Fi, or someone's physically wiring in. I'm assuming they're logging into your Wi-Fi. If they are, then that's a security breach right there. It's not the hardware as much as your Wi-Fi network. Is it the password that you're using that is too easy for them to guess? There's got to be a reason why they're getting in, because normally if you've got a good solid password on your Wi-Fi, no one's going to randomly be coming into your network. But that being said, if you happen to get a NETGEAR Nighthawk router that supports Armor, that's the perfect solution for you, because Armor works at not only the router level to stop people from getting in, but it also works at the device level. You can actually put Armor on your device, like phones, laptops, that sort of thing, that act as a firewall as well. So that's a really good way to secure your network, keep track of who's actually coming in, blocking people. There's a lot of functionality built into Armor that might work for you.
Yeah, perfect. We need Ben on the show. Come on.
Yeah. Also, he's saying he's getting unwanted stuff on his network. Sometimes, like, you may not remember, but you might have connected some smart device, something little that has Wi-Fi connectivity, but has a weird name that shows up on your Wi-Fi device list, and you might think it's someone else, but it might just be a DVD player that has Wi-Fi connection, console, smart device, smartwatch. Like, all that stuff is connecting to your Wi-Fi. You just got to tally up how many devices are on there and see how many you have in your house that are actually connected as well. Like, I forget sometimes what's connected. I'm like, what is this MAC address over here? I have no clue.
Yeah, and especially with things like IoT devices, smart devices, they usually don't pass on their actual name to the router when you're looking. So you do end up with sort of unknown and a MAC address. And it could be that smart light bulb that you put in, but there's no way to tell from the information that's there. And tracking down MAC addresses is a pain.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I do have I got like random light bulbs and all that. So honestly, maybe I should monitor this kind of stuff. But you know, I wonder, Marco, if there's really a way that if you're able to see either device name or, like, you know, what comes up, like what shows up when you see these like unwanted users, right? Because we do want to make sure that we're differentiating between things that might be innocuous, like your light bulb or your Echo device, whatever it is, versus, let's say, an actual security breach, because one problem is definitely way more problematic than the other. Neighbors. How about changing the password? Like, just kind of making things more secure, right?
Password.
That's my first kind of bet, because unfortunately we can't really tell you, hey, download X, Y, whatever software to help out with your product, because I don't know that product.
Here's a cool idea. I guess I just thought of, why have they done two-factor authentication when connecting to your Wi-Fi? If something connects to your Wi-Fi, it sends you a text message and you have to approve it or not. I was wondering why we haven't done that yet.
It makes a lot of sense, actually.
that would require a lot more intelligence in a lot of the devices, especially those IoT smart devices. They're not that smart, like those light bulbs. They barely have enough intelligence to do the basic function of what they want to do. So adding into two-part authentication, that probably is pushing it more than what they're going to be able to do.
But wouldn't that be handled on the router side when something connects? It would send out the two-factor, and you would have to approve or deny it.
You could do something like that, basically setting it up in the router's firmware so everything is blacklisted until you okay it.
Yeah,
that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
you would think that's actually really
that's a good way to completely lock it down. And actually, a lot of routers, you can actually set that up where you set it up so only authorized devices can come in, and you actually authorize each device. And then after that, everything else is locked out until you authorize a new device.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a more user-friendly way, like when it pushes a push notification to your phone and you approve it or deny it, and then it just allows it instead of having to go in and type in every MAC address of what device you want to allow or block.
All these ideas.
Put in Armor.
That's what exactly what I was going to say. I could totally imagine something for Armor saying, hey, new device just got added to your network. Do you recognize the device? Yes, no. Yes, it will automatically let it go through, and then no, it'll just remain blacklisted. Hey, come on. We need to put these things into the idea exchange forum.
Yeah.
So everybody here is in the chat. You guys are getting a bunch of free ideas, so make sure it stays here. All right, but Marco, what do we do? Definitely, okay, so you did mention that he has changed, or they've changed passwords, made a hex password. Man, I would advocate for Armor. If you were on NETGEAR, I'd be like, clear out your stuff, download Armor, try it out, and then kind of get control of your network.
Keep in mind, Armor is a subscription service,
yes.
So there is a subscription to it, but the amount of functionality, features, and safety you get out of it well pays for itself.
I don't want to keep telling people to reset their stuff, but I'm trying to think if that might kind of just like one by one add your like clear out kind of like the default settings on the router that Marco you're currently running on, and then just one by one add your devices back in. Like maybe even change your SSID and your password. Make it complete, like essentially create a different network to what you're currently compared to what you're currently running. Add devices one by one.
Even just changing the password is enough for all of the wireless devices. You change the password, and then every one of your devices that was connected won't be able to connect at that point, and you're going to have to put the new password in. So it's a way to say, okay, we're just going to stop everything at once, and then we'll add each device back in. And any device that isn't added in is someone that shouldn't be there anyway.
Perfect. And Razer 2048 has some really great advice. Use a full character space password. Currently use GRC password generator for Wi-Fi security. Wow. Razer, we need you on the show. Make sure WEP is not being used. It is faster to crack WEP than it is to type in the password. I didn't know that personally. Wow.
Many of the very early security that you have on the routers, some of them they don't even have on the routers anymore, ended up being incredibly easy to crack.
Are you talking about early software?
Which is the reason why the routers now have WPA2 and so on, much harder to crack than the earlier ones.
Wow. So definitely everybody. This is just kind of like a good PSA to check your stuff, check your firmware, check your security, check your device managers. Really common theme here. We've been doing a good job staying on point with the script, I guess. So Marco,
Jerry asked the question about the XR how's the stability on the XR1000 compared to the XR500 and 700? Well, all I can say is that that's what I'm running on my desk here right now, and I use it 8 hours a day for work, plus other things. And for me, it's been rock solid. I haven't had to reboot it once, and it's been working great.
Yeah.
I've been using the 500 and 700, and they're just as solid. I haven't had any hiccups really, other than my actual cable internet going out. The routers hasn't gone out. It's been the actual internet.
I haven't been able to figure out how to fix that one yet. I'd love to be able to, though.
And I think just in general, I'd highly encourage people just to, hey, if you do have the capacity or like budget to consider a Wi-Fi 6 router, completely 100% recommend it. Unfortunately, I don't use an NPG router. I used to, actually. I used to use this engineering unit, actually, for the XR700. I was tested a little bit. But I currently run the RX200, Wi-Fi 6. Like, we pay for gigabit here, and then I'm completely running this stream wirelessly, and I think I mentioned to the guys here before, but yeah, I mean, look, if I got issues with this stream, you guys would notice, and I wouldn't be advocating for this. But definitely, as long as you are in kind of like the latest kind of version of Wi-Fi standards, your devices are, they do have the Wi-Fi 6 chip. Just in general, you should see some better performance just kind of all around there. So highly recommend it. Just really kind of depends on preference and budget, really, at the end of the day. Okay. I know, wait, hold on. Okay, Marco, before we get back to your question here, because I know you're probably testing a bunch of things right now. Razer 2048, has any testing been done on, has any testing been done on how well modern routers SoCs handle overclocking? It would be fun after a user has run out of components in their PC to overclock. Wow, that is definitely a question I cannot answer.
basically what he's asking is, has anyone ever tried to overclock their routers? And other than open source firmware on a router that may or may not allow you to overclock, I haven't seen any routers where they actually allow you to overclock them. Mainly because I know that routers, are very heat sensitive. They're working all the time, pushing a lot of data through. And when they're being designed with that heat level or thermal level, the max that it can handle. And anytime you overclock, then you start heating it up more. And unless they've designed into it to be able to handle a lot more heat than what their normal maximum would be, overclocking is just going to make it too hot. Mm-hmm. And also overclocking, unless it's maxing out the CPU power of the router, you're not going to see any additional speeds because it can only push so many packets. And if it hasn't reached that maximum anyway, you're not going to notice. It's like a highway that can handle 20 cars. If it has 15 cars on it, you're not going to see any faster speed just because there's 5 additional lanes open. And if you push it up to 20, they're all still going the same speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would only see some kind of, and again, this is like off the cuff, but if you were just like, I don't know, running a Plex server with like a ton of 8K videos or something like that, but are people really doing that?
Yeah, that's something you would need a faster processor for. That's where overclocking can definitely help. Mm-hmm. But that's more of the apps that you're putting on it and not the basic functionality of the router itself.
Yeah. So Razer, I do think just in terms of kind of practical advice, like okay, the benefit that you would get out of potentially overclocking this would probably, like, the benefits you get will probably be less than the kind of the risk that you're going to kind of take, right?
You're not going to see the sort of benefits you get when you overclock a PC. Yeah. Because a PC is meant to run a lot of apps. Mm-hmm. And so overclocking can help it run the apps faster, help run more apps. In your router, really all it is it's a traffic cop that's doing things.
Mm-hmm. That's a good analogy. Man. Well, hopefully that did help you out here, Razer. If you got any more questions about kind of, I mean, these are kind of just like cool kind of ticket questions, honestly. So we always love answering these kinds of things. But again, we want your router to kind of last as long as it possibly can. And when you do things that might lessen that, we probably wouldn't encourage that. Which it's kind of ironic, Like you would think we want you guys to upgrade more, but no. We're trying to give you good advice here.
If you really want a faster processor, buy a faster router. Boom. That's the answer.
There we go. There we go. We'll tell you all about that. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks, Razer, for the super insightful question. I did want to make sure, I think, Marco, you did have a little bit of a follow-up here, but want to make sure that you're good. The last update has been to the point where I've been kicked out of my default IP login to access the modem. That also does not sound good. My last advice, reset, change the password, something super unique. Razer put in some good advice into creating a really secure password, and then add devices one by one. That's my thing. Yep. And then after that, consider checking out NETGEAR Armor. That's That's my little cherry on top. Cool. I think we're almost nearly out of questions. We are nearly at the halfway point. I want to make sure that everyone does have time to get the questions answered. If you guys just kind of have cool comments, like, again, we're happy to kind of hang out here. But the show is only as good as the questions that we do get. So this last 30 minutes is you guys' time. And again, if you do enjoy what we're doing here, give it a like, give it a subscribe. If I get 20 likes on this show, I'll be very happy. Typically, we get almost double the amount of people watching, so tell your friends to come join. We got, again, last 30 minutes here, so let's keep the show going. Javin, how do I set up VPN on my router? That's a great question. What kind of router do you have, Javin? That's my first question. Back at you.
Yeah, I think he said he has an XR700.
Oh, really?
Oh no, Jerry has the XR700.
Ah,
yep.
Jerry.
Yeah, and Jerry, your XR700, awesome router built on the same platform as the R9000, which is my main router in my house right now, and it's rock solid and got lots of horsepower. Oh
yes, and when Vanessa, if she comes and joins the show, she would happily advocate for that as well. It really is a power horse. It really is a power horse. So Jerry, I think when we're talking about extra 1000 versus extra 700, honestly, your extra 700 should last you like a good amount of years. I would say consider that if maybe you do have a lot of Wi-Fi 6 devices, you want to eventually get onto the latest standard. But you know, again, we're trying to just tell you, hey, you could get the most out of your current hardware without having to completely reinvest. But hey, you know, we're here to answer your questions once you're ready to upgrade, just to help you out. But yeah, I think, is there anything else that we might need to learn from Javin in order to kind of answer his VPN question?
Actually knowing which NETGEAR router would help, because then we'd know which VPN it's using, and also that should be outlined in the user manual, and we could actually give them the link to the user manual for that router, and it'll give it step-by-step on setting up the VPN.
Yeah, most NETGEAR routers use OpenVPN to set up a VPN service.
Is there
unless they're using like XR700, which uses, I believe, the hybrid VPN.
It's a modem router combo. So yeah, OpenVPN is probably the answer. We can get you a KB article on how to set that up. Yeah,
here. I think I could actually float this up. Ooh, I didn't set up my Chrome view in advance. Wait, well, I kind of did. So let's see. I'm going to flip it. Hopefully it does. Oh, it works. But it looks kind of ugly. Give me a second here. This is the NETGEAR business router. I gotta find a different article here. But I think this should still be relatively relevant. Is that routerlogin.net? Yep. Check advanced. Go to OpenVPN. Go to OpenVPN service box. Yep. Yeah. So this one's actually the business application, but I think Christine, if we have an official OpenVPN how-to, we could throw a link in there, and then hopefully we'd be able to help Javin out. So it is a gateway. Does that make a difference in anything? Are the VPN functionalities different or the same?
The VPN functionality should still be the same, because even with the gateways, you can kind of think of it as two completely separate pieces of hardware that have been combined into one box, which is the reason why you can do like bridge mode on the router portion of it, and the modem still is working fine. So, follow from Javin. Trying to route traffic to NordVPN. If you're trying to use a different VPN service, how would that work out? You wouldn't be able to do it on the router because it doesn't support NordVPN. And I haven't used NordVPN. Have you, Darren?
I have not, no.
Yeah, if it's a client-based as opposed to router-based one, then you don't need to do anything on your router. All it's going to do is it's going to act as a pass-through device to your VPN. And then you basically have the client app on your client, and then whatever server that the VPN is going to go out to. Let me see, and in fact,
so NordVPN would be just essentially all completely software-based, running off of your device.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, as an example, WinScribe is the one that I have on my system, and that's purely software-based.
Yeah.
So it has a client app that runs on my PC, and then it just tunnels out to their server and gets rerouted to wherever I'm going.
Okay. How about the benefits versus negatives, or the pros and cons of software-based VPN services versus let's say something with OpenVPN. Like with OpenVPN, I'm assuming if it's completely baked into the router itself, it's kind of self-running. You don't have to worry about logging on, logging out, stuff like that. But is there any really kind of other good benefits you get if you do use OpenVPN?
Depending on the VPN, it can often act as a VPN endpoint, which means that you can actually log in through VPN to your router, so you have a secure tunnel to the router, and log in as if you were a client on the local network. The same stuff that we do when we VPN to our work account, where we're actually VPNing into the router that's there, and then that is adding us as a connected client within the local network.
Okay.
But you have to have the VPN service running on the router to do that.
Okay. So that's kind of like in the situation that we do when we log into our VPNs.
Exactly the same, yeah.
Okay.
If you're doing it just on the client side, that's basically a peer-to-peer connection.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
So I guess Javin, if he's trying to kind of stay on NordVPN, that's the peer-to-peer solution. That's the only one that would kind of technically work out, unless he completely moves on to OpenVPN and follows our KB article.
Yep.
All right. So Javin, you got a decision to make. Do you want to stick with us, or do you want to continue using your preferred VPN provider? So I think that's kind of like your fork in the road here. Happy to help you out when it does get into the OpenVPN stuff, but then if you're trying to stick on NordVPN again, you know, you're going to kind of have to essentially rely on the service itself to kind of get you the most help. But again, as with everything here, we're going to try to help you out to the best of our ability. Let us know if you do have any updates. I do see that Places and Spaces has, one, welcome back. But number two, he's got a question. What ratio should I use for dual WAN if speeds from two ISPs differ? Using 3 to 1 currently. I mean WAN aggregation, not dual WAN. Wow.
Yeah, if you can actually go in, if you can actually go in and set the ratio of which connection is used more, and it sounds like you can do that because you're saying you're using a 3 to 1 ratio. It all depends on what the WAN speeds are. If on line A you're getting say 100, and on line B you're only getting 30, then your 3 to 1 ratio makes perfect sense. You want to push, 3 times the amount of traffic over to the one that's 3 times faster. But it just depends on what your WAN speeds are.
Wow. I am so lost in this question. I am so sorry.
Well,
this is really great.
Dual WANs.
Yeah,
you
that's sick.
Actually have 2 good ISPs that can get connected to their house that are different.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It ends up being one that's really good and one that's not very good at all, but you use it as sort of a failover when your good one doesn't work.
I have a question, so I could kind of understand it. WAN aggregation, how does that work versus dual WAN?
Yeah, basically, well, first of all, in general, when people think of aggregating, 2 internet line or 2 Ethernet lines is a good way to think about it. If you have 2 Ethernet lines, you're putting it into say a switch and you're aggregating those 2 into 1. What people think of is you're taking 2 1 gigabits and you're turning it into one giant 2 gigabit pipe.
Okay. Huh.
But that isn't what actually happens when you're doing WAN aggregation. It doesn't take both of those lines because they're going to 2 completely different places.
Yeah. That makes sense.
What it does instead is there's a lot of different ways that it can decide which one you're going to go to, which line. One of them is normally called a round robin, and that's the default most of the time. And what it is the first request that goes out on line 1. The next request that goes out on line 2. Then it goes back to line 1. If line 1 isn't busy, then it goes to 2 and just bounces back and forth. And that's the normal default going out. So what happens is if you have 2 WAN or internet lines going out, it doesn't combine them into one giant pipe. Instead, it says when client A is making a request, we decide which one of those lines are going to go out, and they'll go out line A, for instance. Client B now wants a request. Do we send it out on A or do we send it out on B lines? And with his ratio, it looks like it's saying that instead of it giving it a 50-50 odds of which line it's going to go out, 3 times, or or let's see, figure what, about 80% of the time it's going out on one, or 75% of the time it'll go out on 125 for the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what he'd get. And so that was what he was asking, is what's the best ratio? Is it 75% on one, 25 on the other, or should I change that? And that would really be controlled by the speeds that you have on each line, because you want the one that has the faster speed to be used more than the one that has the slower speed.
So why have one so slow? Like which traffic would you want to lead to that? Let's say for places and spaces. Sorry, I'm just kind of getting more information, right?
Yeah.
What traffic do you want to direct to the other line? Not the 1200 megabits.
Normally you would just want it to figure out with that ratio any traffic that's going in and out. You don't want to specially prioritize it. But if you do have a much slower line and one that's much faster, then I would also want to prioritize, say, my gaming on the faster.
Oh, okay. Yep.
The slower one, if it isn't too slow, I might put my video streaming on that. Because if you happen to lose a few frames on video streaming, you never notice.
Yeah.
But normally this is more of just overall traffic that you're doing, and you're not prioritizing particular types of streams that are going out.
Yeah, I mean, you could get a line with better upload for content creation and putting stuff up on one for uploading and using the other one for download speeds.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that's super cool. I really did not even realize that people actually do that. So, and I worked for how long?
Places and Spaces did say, I mean, WAN aggregation, not dual WAN. I'm not quite sure how you're getting WAN aggregation if you don't actually have dual WAN, especially since you said one speed is 1200 and the other one is 200. So a little bit more information might help there, because if you're aggregating everything down into a single WAN connection, then it doesn't matter because you're limited by that WAN connection. So a little bit more info might help if you don't actually have dual WAN. But normally when they talk about WAN aggregation, they're talking about having dual WAN, and then that's being brought down into the equivalent of one connection inside the modem or modem router combo. And then everything just talks to the modem, and the modem decides which connection it's going out on.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense to me now. Wow. I literally went from like zero knowledge to like just, I mean, I kind of get it, but like, I get it, right? So yeah, hopefully Places and Spaces, if you're still watching here after I kind of had my whole soliloquy on trying to understand this, hopefully we can help you out to the best of our ability. I want to make sure, okay. There were a couple things left over, I think, from kind of Javin and Jerry. Yes, I do think that really just kind of close out all the VPN stuff. We do have services offered in terms of, let's say, OpenVPN being kind of baked into your router. But if you do want to use any kind of alternate services, they would be handled through, let's say, hooking up your single computer, going to the VPN, peer-to-peer. I'm actually really not sure if there's an official solution on getting, let's say, VPN providers outside of OpenVPN baked into the router. I'm not sure if that's out there.
Yeah, the only way you're going to get that is if there happens to be an open source firmware for your particular router that allows for additional options, which on some of our older routers, we haven't been doing open source as much with the community recently, but in the past, there were some open source firmware that you could put on the routers that would open it up and allow more VPN services besides the ones that we have. But if, with the routers we have right now, if it's not actually baked into the router, like OpenVPN, then it's going to have to be a client-based VPN, like what I mentioned, like Windscribe that I have.
Wow. So hopefully, we can help you guys out here. I did want to get back here. Christine had a question, actually, a little bit earlier. Okay. And then this is actually kind of goes back to our cable modem kind of gateway talk. If I reset a cable modem, do I have to activate the service with the ISP again? That is a really good question.
You do not. The MAC address is saved by the ISP, and that's how it finds your modem, and then it'll re-upload its boot file to the modem if it needs to give you service again. It keeps looking for it.
Yeah, you may still have to run through the setup on it, because if you do a factory reset on it, it thinks it's going to it's supposed to walk through its setup screens, but you won't have to reactivate the service. As Darren says, they already have all that information in there.
Perfect. All right, we are almost down to our last 10 minutes. So I see 11 likes. I want to get us up to at least like 15. I see people kind of coming in, coming out. So I would love to kind of get you guys to, well, one, like the show if you guys do enjoy the content. And again, this is something that we do every single week. So even if we're not able to completely 100% resolve your questions or things going on in your network today in the last 10 minutes, please come back for next week. Or like Darren mentioned, we do have the community. We have the RD Exchange forum. So check out, is it community.netgear.com? Is that right? Yes, that is right. If you guys do want kind of questions outside of the live stream format. Perfect. So, Hamad had also a good question. You think cable broadband is on the decline? What do you guys think? Cable.
Well, I'd say yes and no. As in, it's on the decline, but only because there's some better options in certain places. And I'm thinking of standard cable, coax type of cable, because once people get fiber, then they'd rather go with fiber than your standard cable broadband. But as far as physical, lines coming to your house on the decline, not really. Over-the-air internet is good in certain situations, but there's a lot of limitations on it, especially since, like with Elon Musk and Starlink, they're going for satellite. It may or may not work well where you're at. I couldn't get it where I live because of all the trees, and it automatically has the issue of latency. When you're going up to a satellite and back down, your ping rate's going to be pretty darn high. So there's always a need for landline version, basically cable version coming to your house, whether it's fiber, coax, or whatever. So I don't think it's really on a decline. I think just we're shifting from coax to fiber, where they actually put fiber in because you can push more data through fiber. That's my thought, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think fiber is getting bigger in cities, and people are going to switch to it because it's a faster service at better prices than the actual cable. But the cable companies are going to have a grasp on the rest of, I guess I'm talking about the U.S. in general, because they're just rooted into places, and that's the only way you can get internet, and they're just going to monopolize it until it dies. Basically, they have to go replace it. It's just going to be there. But yeah, in bigger cities, the fiber is starting to spread, which is good to see.
And they can give you synchronous service on that, where both your upload and download speeds are the same, as opposed to normally with the cable companies, they give you asynchronous. Your download speed's really high, your upload speed's very small.
With fiber, actually, I do have a general question. You have to lay down new fiber for that, right? Like, you gotta, like, when companies are evolving or expanding their fiber options, you can't just, like, completely reutilize old equipment or whatever the heck they use, old cable. You just gotta completely lay down new fiber cables.
New cable, and normally they'll run those underground, as opposed to on the lines like they do with the standard coax stuff. And it's, very expensive to do. But yeah, they have to rerun whole new lines, which is why where I live, we'd never see fiber, because they'd have to run miles and miles through the mountains.
Oh man, that's right. So you do get, how does that work? Because the cables are over the air, right? The mountains, I don't know how the internet actually gets to you.
Yeah, it's all power line type of stuff. Piggybacking off of those things, as opposed to being under the ground. And I know with all of the fires that we've had, now they're looking at PG&E trying to run a lot of their lines in various places, underground. And I can't remember how many miles of line they said they're going to be putting in. But you still probably wouldn't see something like that up here, because trying to run lines underground up a 45-degree slope on a mountain, not going to work real well.
Yep. That sounds super expensive. Do you, okay, last thing while we're on this. Do we actually think that Starlink technology would be so good that they could actually get through the kind of the tree kind of, what do you call that? What do you call that?
You mean the canopy?
Yeah, but I'm trying to, what do we call air bridge? It needs to be,
oh, that's line of
sight.
Point to point. Yes.
Right? So would the Starlink technology actually get so good that we could get around that limitation? Because I think that's like such a limiting I guess, factor when Starlink kind of technology is actually being practiced. You know what I mean?
I don't think they're ever going to get to that point because to push a lot of data through, it literally has to be point to point between you and the satellite.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's trees, things like that in the way, that's going to stop it. And it's not like XM radio, for instance, where you can get that in most places. But that's because they're just doing sort of a broad spectrum blasting it out, as opposed to trying to do a point to point. And so, yeah, with data, internet connection type things, I don't think there's any way they're going to be able to get around. If there's obstacles in the way, it's going to kill your signal.
I guess we got to start experimenting with like some gamma ray technology or something. Get through those trees.
No, because then we're going to start cooking people.
People got to get the internet, right?
I guess the answer to that is cell internet just needs to be more affordable and less data caps and stuff for people to get better internet service in rural areas. But it's just so expensive and they cap you. It's just not even worth it.
Yeah, and even when they say they have unlimited plans, you look at it and you have a limited amount of high-speed data, and then once you pass that, then they drop you down to like 400K, which is good enough to do text messages, and that's about it.
So we can't win. We all can't win. But hey, that's a good segue. Definitely check out. We do have some wireless solutions. We call it fixed wireless here internally, but I believe if you go to the NETGEAR website, our mobile solutions, we have the LAX20 and then the LBR20. So those are actually routers. Or we have Orbi as a solution as well that actually runs off of what do you call that? Oh my god, I can't even think today. The SIM card, the micro SIM card. And then you'll be able to kind of beam LTE technology. It's really, really helpful for actually everybody who doesn't really have reliable cable internet access, especially if you live somewhere rural or you're doing an RV thing. It's really helpful for those kinds of applications. We have 5 minutes, almost about 5 minutes. Come on. Love to see Christine as part of the panelists. You hear that? One day. Actually, she was a part of one of our streams actually a few weeks ago when we had Krishna's debut. So, hey, if you guys want to see Christine, you guys want to see Krishna, throw it in the comments. That's what we got to see. Elias, do you know what modem is compatible with Optimum cable for gigabit modem?
No, there's just too many modems out there. But what I always do whenever someone asks a question like this is just put in a Google search, Optimum modem compatibility, and there's going to be a KB article from Optimum that lists off all the modems that are compatible with them. Yeah. And depending on the service, sometimes I'll even break it down into the actual speeds of the modems, where they'll say 400 above. Here's a list of modems and so on down. And then you just find a NETGEAR modem that falls within that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're looking for stuff for 1 gig speeds, I'd go with one of our DOCSIS 3.1s.
Yes.
Which is the CM1000, the 1100, the 1200, and the CM2000. Those are all 3.1 modems that you can look into to see if they are supported by that ISP.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how reliable the site is, but I floated it up, so Michael Darren, I think you can see it on YouTube now. Approvedmodemlist.com. I don't know. But either way, check this out. You got CX80 and CM500, and I believe CM1200 is also in here. And those are all DOCSIS 3.1 modems. So it seems, again, check these sources because I can't verify on my side. But this was the second result that popped up in Google. So any of NETGEAR's DOCSIS 3.1 modems should work. Yep. But do a little bit more research. We don't want to recommend you something that ultimately won't be compatible. So make sure you check that compatibility. But we do have a good amount of DOCSIS 3.1 modems for you to check out. Definitely check out the CM1200. That's a pretty good beast. We have CM2000 and then the CX80. Those are my recommendations, though, especially for a gig. You're gonna need something a little bit beefier. You know what I mean? All right. Places and spaces. Advantage of fiber for an SFP plus port versus DAC SFP plus cables. Is one better than the other for fiber?
So the basic question that's being asked here is the fiber connection for the SFP plus port better than using a SFP copper cable that runs in between.
Mhm.
And I would say, depending on the distance that you have to run, the fiber, you could have much longer runs than you can have with the copper. In fact, I did a quick look, and it looks like the 10G DAC only longest distance is only about 15 meters. So that would be used within basically a single room, or maybe a room next to it. But
15 meters.
The fiber
Really?
stuff, you can go much, much farther. Yeah, and that's for the 10G speed. Even with fiber, the farther distance you go, the speeds start dropping off. But to have the maximum 10G speed, you can go much farther with fiber than you can with copper. But normally copper is much cheaper than fiber is.
Makes
so
sense.
That's a good reason to go that way.
Sorry, just to drill that down. So I heard fiber versus copper. When it comes to DAC SFP plus versus SFP plus, are those like synonymous with each other? Like the materials that they use for the cable?
Well,
Did I get that right?
Because no, SFP is more of the connector type of port that it's going into, as opposed to the actual material that the cable's made out of.
Gotcha.
Fiber cables are made out of the standard fiber that you see, that clear stuff that on one side, if it was polished down, looks almost like glass, while copper is actually just high quality copper running in between. But the connectors themselves are those SFP plus connectors.
Okay. Just for my benefit, what's DAC SFP plus?
Data, basically it's data over copper, but I can't remember what the A stands for.
Okay, so that would be the copper option, technically.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I hope everybody learned something, because I sure did. Guys, we need 2 more likes. Just give me 2 more likes, and I will be so happy with 15. But again, this is the last minute of the show. Unless there's like a really burning question that you have that we can answer in a minute. Did want to say thank you to everybody who participated in the chat today. Again, I learn every single week. You could probably tell when I read these questions out when I do know and when I don't know, right? But either way, really appreciate everybody, especially for our regulars who come back week over week. As long as our schedule stays put, we will have Krishna, our interactive media intern, returning to host for next week. If you want to see Christine in the panel, drop it in the chat. But otherwise, again, we want to thank you for your time here. I did see one last thing from Razer. And the CM1200 does seem to be a good option for you. So, Elias, be sure to check that one out. You can check it out at NETGEAR.com. And for everybody else, I really look forward to seeing you guys next time. So see you in a couple weeks. Bye.